When Sam Hale crossed the splintered county line of Harrowvale, he'd felt the land's chill crawl through his mind in ways the city never did. 34, recently divorced and out of work, he told himself the trip was to fix up and sell the old family cabin. Perhaps sell it to a family that would use it more than he ever did. But he had an uneasy weight inside of his chest, a dread, a longing, a pull that he couldn't justify in his mind. It was as if some unseen, malignant force was trying to pull him back to the cabin, the way bees are instinctively pulled back to their nest. The road into Harrowvale had changed little since boyhood summers. Tree boughs arched overhead, old trees crowding close together and so thick with moss and dead ivy that they swallowed the sun and the sound of passing traffic, leaving only the hush of the wind and the crows. Harrowvale looked like a place at the world's end. Not that he remembered much of it from when he was younger. After all, it had been years since he was there last. He did remember the good times he had when his father took him to the cabin for a fishing weekend getaway, but other than that, all that lingers in his mind is his father's fading smile from those trips. He parked by the stone bridge and looked at the footpath smothered in knotted brambles. He grumbled to himself, "This is gonna be a long walk through this shit." The air stank faintly of wet dirt and dead leaves, and Sam hefted his duffel bag over his shoulder with a huff. Long-gone memories coming back to him with every step. Bonfire stories, May Day games, the village oddities he dismissed as local color. "You're not from around here, are you, lad?" He remembered the grocer's wife once asking him and his father. "Not really," Sam's dad responded. "So then what you doing out this way?" The miserly old lady glared at Sam as she asked his father. "Oh well, I'm taking my son fishing through the woods over there yonder at the pickerel pond. We have a small cabin out that way, and I'd figure I'd teach him a lesson or two about throwing a spinning rod." "Well, y'all stay safe then. Try to get into your cabin before sunfall." "Well, all right, ma'am," Sam's dad said. "Well, I'd imagine it gets pretty dark around here then." "Oh, it gets dark all right." She moved on to the next customer. You see, the whole town was like that. Small, strange interactions from the townsfolk to wherever Sam and his father went. It was part of the reason Sam's father took him there only a few times before he abruptly died of a heart attack. A figure wearing a gray jacket and an old battered hat waited by the cabin as Sam approached. Old Tom, the handyman who'd watched the place before Sam's father died. "You made it then?" Tom rasped, his fingers yellowed with tobacco, his eyes flitting uneasily as they scanned the woods behind. "Just barely," Sam muttered. The cabin squatted close to the soil, stone walls coated with decades-old lichen. Ivy grew up to the windows. "It's good to see you, Tom. Man, she looks rough," Sam said, offering Tom an awkward grin. "I do reckon I'd need your help." "It's good to see you as well, Sam. Part of me didn't think you'd show," Tom said. "Not after what happened." They let the "what" hang uncomfortably. You see, the old stories, the ones where the woods came for you if you wandered off path, and the news about the children missing for a week, then stumbling home with wild eyes, mute as stones. Sam had never believed them, and his father sheltered him from most of the news and the stories. They unlocked and opened the old cabin door, the wood screaming into the forest from years of rust on the hinges. Sam ran his hand over the hearth, collecting dust and watching the motes disappear into the air. He let his hand trace the sigils scratched into the old stones. A sunburst, a spiral, and an eye. "Old ways, you know," Tom offered, his voice just barely audible. "People used to say they're keep things out of the cabin. Yeah, I never understood it, Sam remarked. Seems archaic, although I always thought it was somewhat beautiful. You know, my father never did tell me what these markings were for. Well, Sammy, it could be indigenous artwork to warn others, or it could have been someone who was just bored. Your father's family has owned this plot of land for a long time. The cabin? Oh, hell, the whole area around these parts are ancient. This cabin has been here for well over 100 years. There's a lot of history that goes along with that. There's still a lot of old wood to it, other than the few areas your daddy and I patched up long ago. But I'd like to think that those markings are there for a reason. And what this is, well, I guess we all find out for ourselves with time. Tom glared at Sam. What do you mean by that, Tom? Sam questioned him. Well, tell you, what I mean is this, that we learn things over time, Tom responded. Yeah, I guess, Sam said as his eyes looked over the rest of the cabin, barely taking in what Tom was saying. Sam pried open the warped window and breathed in the fresh outside air. It was the silence that unsettled him out here. The thick trees, the vast amount of bushes suffocating every noise from the outside world. Sam wasn't used to the quiet, and his ears replaced city life with a constant ringing noise. Best you stay in tonight, Sam, Tom said, pausing in the doorway. First night's always the worst when you get away from the city. You will eventually remember the cabin layout and, well, probably so will they. Tom mumbled the last part. Who's they? Sam tried to laugh, but Tom gave no answer and headed out the door. Sammy, it's been a while since you've been here. I mean this. Please listen to me. Stay inside tonight, and please don't take this the wrong way, but you're a city slicker. Hell, your daddy only brought you out here a few times before. There is no Uber. There is no night lights, there's no street lamps, and you gotta go get a bucket of water out of the stream if you want to get a drink. You know, the forest is dangerous if you don't know your way around it. That's all I mean. Tom nodded his head, got into his truck, and left. Now that first night, Sam drank in the quiet, relaxed, and stretched out on a musty old bed. Wind ripped at the cabin, howling in a language that he almost recognized. It almost sounded like old nursery rhymes, lullabies, and the hush of Tom saying, "Don't go out tonight." When sleep finally came, it brought dreams that felt like vivid memories. He dreamed of dirt-covered, blindfolded children with tattered clothing running through the ferns and chanting while holding hands around a stone circle. A monolith of sandstone standing in a forest clearing, painted with oil. Sam woke, gasping, to the scrape of a branch outside the cabin. Morning dawned and it was grim with mist snaking from the cover of the woods. Harrow Vale was only a short 2-mile walk from the cabin, and Sam thought it would be good to walk into town and grab some supplies. But Harrow Vale was barely half a village now. A bakery, a muddled pub, a squat church whose bells never rang while he was there. The villagers warily watching him pass by. Some nodded, others stared with concern or suspicion, but Sam couldn't tell which. Arriving at the only shop in town, the grocer's wife was a different woman now. But with the same pinched smile, she asked, "How are you? Why, you look awfully familiar. Now, let me see. That face. No, don't say anything. Why, you're Bill Hale's young buck, aren't you?" she said. "Yes, ma'am. I'm just going to be fixing up my father's cabin and hopefully sell it." "Sell it?" the old woman interrupted. She was surprised. "Yes, ma'am, it's time to bury some of my past, I suppose. Move on to greener pastures, as they say. Well, you know, young man, We don't really care for change around here, but if you're so committed to this project, then good luck to you." She smiled a half-smile and glared at Sam with intense eyes. Sam felt something amiss, but couldn't tell with her encouraging words. Yet her ravenous eyes were conveying a different message. Sam forced a laugh, brought bread and tea, and tried not to listen as she muttered to another customer. "Too long gone. He won't know the signs. Never will." Later on that day, Tom met Sam by the graveyard, his fingerless gloves twisting in worry. "Something wrong with the woods, he said. His voice was low. "There's been a sickness in the soil for years. The folks say to stay clear of the standing stone if you ever want out of here. But you'll hear it call to you. Ever since the old rites were broke, things don't settle easy." Sam almost laughed. Almost. "Tom, now I don't mean to complain, but what is with everybody here? It's like they're welcoming, but I've got a feeling that these people would rather stab me in the back. Plus, all the strange talk. I mean, Christ, listen to yourself, Tom. Sickness in the soil, standing stone, stay inside at night. You trying to tell me something I should know? Am I in danger here, or am I just being paranoid?" Sam replied. "Sam, your father never told you this because you was too young. Hell, we haven't seen you in over 25 years. This place is steeped in tradition. See, when that sun goes down, we stay inside. Always. It's not a question. It's just something that we do. Now, we had 3 children go missing in the years you've been gone. 3 children. And you know why? Because they ain't listened. Another person didn't listen either. And something took them, or they died from the land. No one really knows, Sammy. Not even the sheriff. Now, just last month we found 4 children at the standing stone, holding hands and praying to the damn thing. Hell, these was in a trance. Little Debbie's eyes were so far in the back of her head that her old lady smacked her so hard it made her little brother, Tommy, cry." Tom exclaimed. "With all due respect, Tom, I just want to sell the damn cabin and get out of here. I was never one for tradition. I rarely went to church and Sam was interrupted. "Sammy, now hold on. All I'm trying to say is while you are here in our little piece of existence, just obey our traditions, that's all. Or you might end up like them." Tom waves an upturned hand to the graveyard. That night, as fog wrapped around the cabin, Sam pressed his head to his pillow and told himself not to listen to all of the gossip. There was nothing there, nothing except for wind and his own heart's beat. And by the 3rd night, Sam's dreams had changed. Children danced around the standing stone wearing goat masks, chanting, "Come and see, come and see." Their childlike voices sang out, "Come and remember what was owed, and we will cede." Sam woke the next morning with dirt beneath his fingernails. His palms, red and bruised, ached, and his fingernails were chipped as if he'd been digging. His clothes were slightly worn and soiled. He sat up slowly, gathering scattered memories of his restless sleep. He remembered distant chanting and their demon song. Sam spent this day fixing up the old cabin, tools in hand, patching leaks and cursing the rot snaking through the roof. Yet his eyes drifted again and again to the ring of trees hemming the cabin. The tangling brambles where the wind whipped through made them sing. Old Tom arrived at dusk, his mouth set in a grim line. "You been hearing them?" he asked, wide-eyed. "The old ones. They don't like strangers up there by the stone." Sam hesitated. "This is all weird, Tom. Who are they?" But Tom was already shaking his head. "Well, they're folk who never left. folk who shouldn't have come back. I'm not sure if anyone really knows. Tom awkwardly stared at Sam. After Tom left, Sam bolted the door and made tea, his hands trembling. The phone in his bag buzzed, a message from his sister, Gina. Any luck selling? Don't let the place spook you. It always did to me. He thought of replying. It's just cold and weird. But his thumb hovered. In the end, he just stared at the screen, feeling very far from anyone. The following morning, he roused himself and ventured out, the urge to understand twisting deep down into his gut. He followed the old sheep path through stunted oaks whose bark flaked away like scabs, down toward the hollow. His boots sank into the soft loam as crows lurched from tree to tree overhead, coarse calls rising and falling like warnings. Eventually, the ground dipped and the trees fell away, and there it was, the Standing Stone. It stood nearly as tall as Sam, rough and hunched, covered with green and ivory lichen. Carvings curled over its surface, spidery lines, human fingers with exaggerated tips. The moss at its base was tacky with some dried black substance. A ring of trampled grass encircled it, as though something was walking around it so many times it was nearly dirt. Sam shuddered despite himself. He knelt, reaching out to trace a groove into the stone. His finger fit perfectly, as if the indentation waited just for him all these years, just for this moment. The world sharpened suddenly, his vision dimmed and tunneled. The wind stilled around him, and the trees surrounding him leaned in, as if pointing to the stone, and behind him, Sam barely heard a twig snap. He spun around, heart hammering in his chest as if he was having a panic attack. His fight-or-flight response tweaking in his mind, and his ears were ringing. But there was nothing there. When he turned back to look at the stone, a voice rasped inside his head. Or was it from the stone? Neither male nor female, but it was ancient as the earth itself. Ode. You left and did not finish. Return the debt. Sam jerked back, pulling his finger from the stone, and his breath was ragged, his ears screaming a high-pitched tone. He stumbled away back into the woods. He ran through the forest, every sapling smacking him in the face, tearing little bits of flesh as they did, and when he finally arrived back at the cabin, Sam was worse for wear. He had stubbed his toe on a rock so hard he thought he had broke it. On his face he wore a grimace of maniacal fear as blood poured from multiple wounds. He locked the cabin door, shut the drapes, sat in his father's old rocking chair, and tried to calm down. But within the calm of the cabin, he heard the stone call out to him. Ode. He remembered his father, furtive and white-knuckled each May Day. Remembered being told never to join the children's games in the woods. He thought it was just superstition, country nonsense. He was young, he couldn't possibly understand. But now he wondered. That night, Sam woke up to an eerie whining coming from the front door. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the surrounding trees scratching at the cabin with their branches. It was almost a high-pitched bleating. Not a familiar sound to Sam, but he had heard it a few times before when he was in the village. He got up out of bed and made his way to the front window of the cabin that was near the door. He gently poked a finger around the drapes and peeked out of the window. In the din of the crescent moonlight stood a battered, old and worn goat. Its fur was matted and dark in some sections. It had a single broken horn and was looking at the cabin. Sam gently opened the door, looking left and then right suspiciously. What in the hell are you doing all the way out here? Sam spoke to it. "You lost your way? I'm not your owner," he continued. He slowly stepped further along the grayed and decaying porch toward the grassy area before the woodline, where the goat was standing. And just as Sam stepped off the porch, he heard a screaming off to his right. The goat ran in the direction of the standing stone, and Sam looked to his right to see the underbrush shaking, as if someone or something was hiding in the bushes. He ran back up onto the porch and into the cabin, shutting the door behind him. He spent the rest of the night with a hammer in his hand, his rocking chair facing the front door, as he faded into and out of sleep. The next day, he returned to the village. The villagers peered from their windows, none meeting his gaze, not until he reached the edge of the churchyard, and the vicar blocked his way. "Some debts can't be left unpaid, Mr. Hale," the vicar said. His tone was kindly, but his eyes were sharp as knives. "We keep faith with the land, or the land keeps faith its own way. Best you let the past lie, son, or you might lie with it too." Sam responded angrily. "All right, listen, I've had enough of this nonsense. Tell me, please, what is this all about? I haven't been to this place in years." The vicar smiled widely. "Your debt, Sam. Don't tell me that you don't remember. Your family's debt." "What debt?" Sam said. The vicar turned his head to look at an old goat with a broken horn emerging from the forest in the distance. "Meet me at the standing stone tonight." The vicar trailed off as he stared at the goat. "You must come. It is important." Sam waited by the hearth in his cabin the rest of the day, staring at the symbols carved into the stone, wondering about the hands that had etched them and what their meaning was. The church bell tolled, pulling him out of his thoughts, a single rippling, hollow note. He pulled on his boots and grabbed his coat. The night greeted him with sharp mist, moonless and thick. Shadows leapt from the brush, birthing shapes that blinked in existence and then melted away. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, but his feet followed the old path, and his perseverance for answers guided him. Suddenly, shapes moved between the trees as he heard footsteps stomping on twigs and earth. Lanterns bobbed in the distance. The villagers, faces masked by wreaths of leaves and bone, trailing ribbons, and the younger ones wearing goat masks. Sam shuddered as he recognized old Tom and the grocer's wife among them, their eyes wide but completely vacant, trance-bound to the calling of the bell, or even perhaps the standing stone itself. Sam was awestruck by the sight, never realizing that his so-called meeting would involve everybody in town. They did not speak to Sam. Instead, they made way, parting before him, their heads lowered and their arms folded. He passed through them like a traveler in a fever dream, looking at them awkwardly in stunned silence. He tried to greet Tom, but Tom did not respond. He only moved forward with one foot in front of the other, like an invisible string was pulling him to the location of the stone. The standing stone loomed ahead, crowned with offerings, pears and pouches of grain, piles of coins, vials of dark liquid, small wooden carved dolls, and a goat's skull draped in ribbons. Sam swallowed at the sight, unable to speak. The village vicar joined them shortly after the parade of adorned townsfolk arrived. He was dressed in a red cassock. He began to speak. "You're the blood, Sam, the line. You owe what was promised for salt, shelter, and safety. Your father bargained, as did his father's family before. You left, but the land always remembers, and the land always gets paid. Sam staggered forward, the townsfolk now a ring around the stone. Sam and the vicar. "What is owed?" Sam choked. "What does it want?" The vicar gestured, and the villagers began to pull jagged, archaic-looking knives from their pockets. Some were made of bone, some wood and steel, some even scraps of rusted metal with cloth wrapped around the base for a handle. But they all had one intent: blood. Blood seals the bargain. Blood binds the root. Stay, pay, and the land rests, and all is forgiven, and we can continue to grow and prosper, the vicar pronounced. Or refuse, and Harrow Vale drowns in rot and shadow, and you will fertilize our orchards and fields. You will pay the debt. A young girl wearing a dirtied white gown and a goat skull atop her head, with flowers positioned out of the eye sockets of the skull, pressed the knife blade into the palm of his hand. "Just a drop," she whispered. "A promise for a promise." The chanting swelled, the land seeming to tremble beneath his feet. Unthinking, Sam held the girl's hand and pressed the blade to his palm, dragging it across the lifeline. Blood welled from his hand, darker than the night. The young girl then took Sam's bleeding hand and placed it onto the rock, inserting his now blood-soaked finger into the hole. Sam could feel the blood run out of his wound onto the standing stone in the ground below. The stone, seemingly sucking the blood through its porous rock face, was pressing on to his fingers so tightly that Sam thought it would crush it. But it didn't. And for a while, the vicar, the villagers, Sam, and the little girl said nothing and made no sound. The only sound that broke that misty night air was the sound of the standing stone sucking on Sam's blood. A squelching, gulping, and suckling noises emanated from the disturbingly thirsty stone, and when the stone had had enough, it released its grip on Sam's finger, and he slowly withdrew his hand. He had lost a lot of blood and was beginning to turn pale. He woozily stood in front of the crowd, wondering what would happen next. The vicar's voice then thundered. "The debt is paid. The promise is renewed." Sam fell finally to his knees, the strength draining away as the children began to sing. Their song was gentler now, a lullaby stitched with sorrow and yet relief. As he faded out of consciousness, Sam felt something changing inside of him. Roots working beneath his skin, ancient words twisting in his ears, a seed planted deep within his heart, waiting to flower with the dawn. Sam drifted on the edge of consciousness, the night a tapestry woven from strange voices, visions of goat-like creatures wearing flowered garlands and bone necklaces, dancing behind the trees and singing old songs. He laid sprawled in the dew-soaked grass, the standing stone above him like a valiant warrior over his fallen foe, or a king to a peasant groveling. By morning, the villagers had dispersed, their shapes slipping away, swallowed by the trees. Only the young girl remained, watching him with eyes with horizontal pupils. He groaned as pain lanced through his palm, the cut already crusted with blood and earth. He tried to rise, but the world around him spun. "What happens now?" he whispered, his breath feathering into the cold air. The girl brushed a strand of hair from her face, moved her hoofed feet, shuffling backwards, her stone-cold expression as solemn as an old portrait. "The land keeps its bargains, Sam Hale. For a year, peace. For a year, green shoots. Until next year." Her voice was soft, bitter with knowledge far beyond her years. "You carry it now. The old vow." She placed her hand on Sam's cold forehead, and images flickered behind Sam's eyes. Generation of Hales, each drawn back to this circle, each kneeling before the stone, offering a blood sacrifice. "You're one of them, the Hales," she said. "The children went missing because your father took you away from this place. You were supposed to pay the blood debt. The stone took the children instead. Call it a warning, vengeance for a price not paid. It was paid for by those young souls. It's a large price to pay for such a simple offering. Wouldn't you agree?" Sam slowly nodded his head. "It's fucking stupid," he spat out. He noticed her cloven hoof feet, and he recoiled in horror. "What the hell are you?" "I'm the keeper of the stone, and the enforcer of the debt," the young girl replied as she turned around and walked into the tree line. Before she completely disappeared into the forest, however, she said one more thing. "You will be back next year." He limped back to the cabin, moving like a man twice his age. Tom waited on the steps. "It's done then," Tom said. It wasn't a question. Sam just nodded. "For now." "Do the townsfolk remember anything?" Tom shook his head. "Folk forget what must be forgotten. Until next year, no one will speak. But you'll remember." Sam pressed a tea towel to his palm and tried not to shake. "Tom, what if I leave? What if I go back to the city and never come back?" Tom looked up sharply, his gaze piercing. "The promise still holds, Sam. Wherever you go, something's planted in you now." He shrugged, sadness deepening the lines of his face. "You best make peace with it. You're kin to this place, whether you wish to or not." Gina called soon after sunrise, her voice clear and unconcerned. "Any better? Did you get the cabin listed yet?" Sam almost laughed. "Well, I think I'm staying here a while, Gina. I think there's some things here I still need to sort out." By midsummer, the town's crops flooded a lush green, thick with clover and wheat. Sam watched the children, carefree again, chase each other around the old maypole outside of the church. Not a soul mentioned the stone, nor the little girl, but Sam felt the memory every time he looked back at the scar on his palm. That autumn, he wrote letters to Gina and to friends in the city, explaining only that Harrowvale had a way of holding on to its own. And when the year turned and the wild flowers died back, Sam Hale knew the dread would come around again. Only this time, he would be ready. The land remembers, always. And now, so did he.